Your days of begging for sales meetings ended the second you decided to watch this video. Now that's a bold claim, but something I want you to understand before we get into what really sales process automation is, I want you to understand some of the things that it's not and some of the things that it is, because I don't want to waste your time before I get into the bulk meat and potatoes of what I want to explain in the 3-step process that I'll describe to you of what really sales automation is and what you can do with it to help you grow your sales. So there's been a huge problem in the B2B selling space over the last few years, which ultimately comes down to blind automation. So one of the first things I want to make sure you're aware of before I get into this is that sales process automation is not blind automation. So I'm going to go through that in a little bit. But something that's really important for you to think about, all right? You cannot manufacture and completely automate B2B relationships. All right, so what qualifies me to say this? First of all, I built my first business, which was part of a franchise organization, Sculpture Hospitality, into a top 10 franchise in 4 years. We were selling door to door to bar and restaurant owners, and it was an extremely difficult business to grow. And most of the top players in that business were around over 20 years. I did it in 4 years. How did I do it? I did it with principles, with B2B selling frameworks, and building real relationships. You can't automate relationships, all right? The next thing that qualifies me to say this is that I built $1 million outbound sales and prospecting agency lead engine that we helped land appointments and help companies grow their business with proven B2B sales frameworks. And third, I'm the founder and CEO at Upticks, which is a sales process automation software that helps B2B sales teams manage and scale up their sales efforts in a principled way. And I've seen time and time again with our 1,000+ users in Upticks, people who think they can blindly automate and manufacture B2B relationships. And I can tell you the big difference between the successful people and the people that aren't as successful. And the biggest thing is that people think that you can blindly manufacture B2B relationships. So let's get going here. First of all, starting with what is not sales process automation. First of all, it is not growth hacking in the name of sales. There's a big trend in the growth hacking space, and I've got a bunch of competitors that use sort of gimmicks and stuff like that to try to trick people into thinking that they can grow their business that way. Growth hacking is sort of one of these terms that has come to popularity for people just trying to figure things out, right? But what it's kind of built up into is this really gimmicky way of doing sales and doing prospecting and doing lead nurturing and basically trying to trick prospects, right? There's always some sort of little growth hack that's not consistent, and then the next day there's a new one, and then a new one, and a new one, and a new one, so on and so forth, right? And at the end of the day, it's not sustainable. You can't put in a certain amount of time or money into the top of that process, and at the end of it, fully predict what's gonna come out of it. You might be able to do it for a little while, but sales and marketers ruin all good things. So once the consumer really catches on to the tricks and the gimmicks, then you're on to another growth hack. And all the while you're experiencing these ups and downs. And what does that do to your mental energy and your clarity for your business? It completely destroys your productivity, your hopes even. There's a lot of really negative mental side effects to having to deal with these roller coasters. The next thing sales process automation is spamming. Okay? Blindly sending cold emails, as many as you can, as fast as you can. Sales process automation is not that. So you need to get that out of your head. And I'm gonna tell you straight up, it doesn't work, okay? If it worked, then everybody and their dog would be in Bora Bora sipping pina coladas or whatever they drink in Bora Bora, right? And everyone would be retired, because every single person really preaching cold outreach are essentially trying to tell you that you just need to send as many cold emails as you can. At the end of the day, what that is spamming. So sales process automation is not spamming. And I'll get into why the term automation is even used later on. And you might not think you're spamming people, but if you're not qualifying leads and reviewing them and seeing if your product or service is a good fit, and you're just blindly sending messages, you're spamming people. You're not trying to reach out to them, you're spamming them, all right? I hate to tell you that if that's what you're doing. The next thing sales process automation is not, is some flash in the pan gimmick. It's a way to build proven processes, all right, leveraging technology. And the last thing that sales process automation is not is a numbers game. All right? It's not a numbers game. You can't sit around thinking, if I just get more numbers, if I just get a bigger lead list, then all of a sudden, if I get 10x the lead list size, if I go from 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000, that the bottom metrics are going to result in the same thing. That's not how it works. There's largely diminishing returns every time you amplify something because there's problems that happen along the way that you want to completely avoid. All right, so let's get into the good news, all right? So now that I've beat you over the head with an iron fist and you understand what sales process automation is not, and if you're still watching, then I hope some of what I'm saying here makes sense because you've probably been through it and you know that you've been sold a bill of goods when it comes to this stuff. All right. So what is sales process automation? First of all, it really just comes down to structures, right? So building repeatable structures. And I say this in every video, but my handwriting's terrible. It's to keep me organized, not you. So I hope you kind of follow along here. But sales process automation is about building a foundation, building a structure that can't break, okay? Sales process automation, unbreakable structures. That's really what we're trying to do. Growth hacking tactics, breakable. Spamming people, breakable. Gimmicks, breakable. Playing the numbers game, breakable. So the first thing you need to understand is that sales process automation is about structure. The next thing sales process automation is about are principles. What a concept, right? We need to leverage technology with principled processes and selling frameworks. All right? Again, things that are structured that can't break. And as I went through over here, and I think you get the point now, principles in B2B selling is what's going to help you build relationships. You know, and I know, of course, that B2B sales is about building relationships. And you can't build relationships without principles. The third thing it comes down to are building SOPs. Okay, so sales process automation, kind of getting into, what some of this means a little bit, building standard operating procedures for your sales department. And sometimes I like to say sales operating procedures, right? So at the end of the day, we want to build repeatable processes. Now, don't confuse that with trying to play the numbers game. But at the end of the day, we want predictability, okay? So if we put energy, time, effort, or money into the top, what are we gonna get at the bottom? And the only way we can do that is building structured, standard operating procedures that are predictable. And you can't predict things when you're doing this kind of stuff. When you're structured and you use principles and you build standard operating procedures that helps you ramp a sales team, when you lose a sales rep, what happens? Okay, you have a structured framework, right? And all of a sudden the faucet doesn't just turn off overnight. When you have these sales operating procedures and you have the framework and the principles, when things happen, you can pick up and you can move a lot faster than having to go and figure out, growth hacks and all that kind of stuff that can break literally overnight when LinkedIn decides to change their algorithm, right? All right, the last thing, and I've sort of alluded to this now, is predictability. You want predictability, and I'll throw in repeatability into that. And I sort of mentioned that here. This all sort of goes together, all right? But sales process automation, we're trying to build predictable outcomes. And the only way to do that is to have structure, principles, have standard operating procedures for the way that you do things. And you can't build these on the back of, gimmicks and spamming and growth hacking and all that kind of stuff, right? So one of the core fundamentals of sales process automation I want you to understand is building relationships. And you can't do that with tricks, all right? The only way to do that is highly targeted personalization with your outreach, with your lead nurturing. And what that'll do is help bring predictability. Okay, so now that I've given you just a short little lesson on what sales process automation is not and what it actually is, let me give you my 3-step process of what you can do to implement sales process automation into your business. All right, so getting into the 3-step process that I use. Now, I'm not gonna at you, there's a lot of different things that go into each one of these, but I know I only have your time and attention for a certain amount of time. So bear with me. And of course, I've got a lot more information on this stuff. So first of all, step number one with sales process automation is about nurturing, all right? And what do I mean by that? Nurturing deals, nurturing leads, nurturing customers. Too many times people are addicted to just cold outreach, and that's coming up, right? But nurturing is more important, and squeezing as much as we can out of every single lead, every single deal, every single customer. Now, I'm not saying take advantage of people or do anything unethical or anything like that. I just mean there's a lot of missed opportunity in sales because people focus on the flashy objects, right? And usually that's going out and getting new business, building new relationships. And that's a piece to the puzzle. But take this example, for instance. Let's just say you're doing cold email. And let's just say you get a 10% reply rate on 100 emails. All right, 10 people reply, 2 are interested. Well, out of those 10, 2 are interested. What happened to the 8? All right, just because that person wasn't interested, or maybe they gave you a maybe, right? Maybe they left a little ray of light in there. It doesn't mean there's not an opportunity down the road, okay? Life is about timing. Sometimes people are window shopping, they're fact finding, right? The timing probably isn't right for their business. It's not relevant for them at the time. And so it's good for you to get your product or service in front of them and for them to know that you exist, but you need to nurture them long term. And the way we do this nurturing is systematic, okay? Systematic. So the automation portion comes in with nurturing a lot easier than it does with cold outreach. With cold outreach, it takes more effort. You have to exhaust more calories to do cold outreach. With nurturing, because you've already built somewhat of a relationship or something with that prospect, we can leverage automation a little more. Now, I'll talk about automation in regards to cold outreach in just a second, but nurturing in a systematic way, step-by-step, sequential process, and you want to cover the gamut, all right? So you want to nurture customers. That might sound crazy. I don't have time to go into that fully in this training. You want to nurture former customers, all right? They're some of your best prospects. You want to nurture people that put you in the friend zone, as I like to say it. Someone that didn't give you a yes, didn't give you a no. You've had a sales appointment with them, right? And they're kind of in this gray zone. You didn't push them through your pipeline. You want to push them through your pipeline, and you want to nurture them for the long term. Then you got the people that are not interested. And by not interested, I'm not meaning the Grant Cardone kind of not interested. What I mean are people that you've gained acceptance, right? They just said, now's nothing, not right timing. I'm not quite interested right now, but there's a little ray of light. And what you essentially do is you ask, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, you mind if I follow up with you every so often, every 3 or 6 months? More times than not, people will say, yeah, absolutely. Because with cold outreach and how you're generating appointments, a lot of times, people aren't ready to buy in that exact point in time. So nurturing them for the long term is going to be super, super important. The next step in sales process automation is your traditional cold outreach, okay? And there's 2 primary mechanisms I want you to think about doing this. The first of all is building channel partners, affiliates, influencers, stuff like that. People where you can build one relationship and then you can get access to many customers, okay? Now there's a certain way, of course, that you can do that, and that's a topic for a whole nother day. But at the end of the day, if you have a one-to-many approach, it takes some time to build and nurture that relationship, of course, but eventually it starts to snowball, all right? So you want to put some time and effort into this. And the way we do this, I'm not going to get into like, okay, you should cold email, you should cold call, you should do LinkedIn prospecting. That's not really important as it pertains to sales process automation. You do all those things, right? Of course. But I just want to get you thinking on high-level strategy. And now getting into not just referral partners, but just doing your traditional cold outreach to leads, doing direct response sales. Where automation comes in is in the process, okay? The structure, the framework, the SOPs, and essentially what the automation side of it's doing is it's helping drive the bus on the overall process. So what's action number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5? What does that look like? All right? And automation is going to come in to help you drive the bus in the process. But we want to stay structured, we want to stay principled, we want to have standard operating procedures, and we want predictability and repeatability with it. All right? We're not relying on gimmicks. So one of the biggest things that we're going to do with cold outreach here is personalization. Unlike lead nurturing, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't do personalization with nurturing, Nurturing is mostly after you've met with somebody, you've built a little bit of a relationship. We can automate some stuff and still make it look personal with nurturing. With cold outreach, because there's so many salespeople and marketers that have essentially ruined everything, and they've tried to blindly automate their way to B2B relationships. And I'm not saying you can't get some sort of results, but it's not sustainable, it's not predictable. So with cold outreach, you have to have a personalized approach to it, or you're gonna get lost in the shuffle. Too many people are just blindly automating their way around the internet, thinking that they're gonna scale their business. And you've been sold a hope and a dream. Again, I'm not saying you can't make some sort of traction with it. You can't build a really great business and scale a business on the back of that, all right? It's gonna break. All right, so step number 3 is systemization. So at the end of the day, sales process automation really comes down to building systems. So you're gonna need some sort of software to help you drive the bus on this, all right? And you've probably used a million softwares, right? But you've got a cold outreach tool, you've got a CRM, you've got a nurturing, you've got all these different tools. And at the end of the day, if you have a sales team, you've got a tool over here, a tool over here, a tool over there. Pretty soon you're a glorified admin, and getting predictable results by managing all these tools and all these systems, it's not gonna happen, all right? So you need to organize your work and your processes and your systems into a sales process automation system where you can focus on the global steps that you need to take to get that bottom of the funnel result. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. All right. And ideally, the way you do this is that you're not using a million different tools. You want your reps focused on building relationships and nurturing prospects, following up, and you want them to reach out to new prospects to build new relationships. Okay. And the best way to do this is to hold some level of accountability, have those standard operating procedures in your business, and a sales process automation system can drive the bus on all of that. So now you're sitting here wondering what a sales process automation system is, how it's different than all of the other tools that you've been using. So let's get into that next year. So the idea behind a sales process automation system is it's really a command center for your sales. So maybe it's just you, or maybe you have an actual team, but essentially it's a command center for your sales so that you can eliminate all these other different distractions with different sales softwares, right? So what it's gonna serve as is your nurturing. This is gonna look very similar to the last page, but it's gonna serve as your tool to help you nurture, to schedule tasks for your reps to perform manually. It's even gonna automate some of those. All right, it's going to include things like a power dialer, SMS, email, all that kind of stuff. So all that's included in there, right? The next thing it's going to serve is for your cold outreach. So I get asked a lot, what Upticks is and what it does, and sometimes people just think it's a cold outreach tool. It's not just a cold outreach tool. It's also serving as lead nurturing because the money is in the follow-ups, baby. Everything in business is built on follow-up, follow-up, follow-up. There's not a lot of people that are just going to hand you their money the second you meet them. So a sales process automation system is gonna handle your nurturing, everything from task scheduling, right, for your reps to do or you to do, holding you accountable, to completely automating it without losing personalization, SOPs, all that kind of stuff, right? The next thing is that it's gonna serve as your lightweight CRM. Now, I don't know how big your business is, but most businesses out there don't need to run some complex CRM. CRMs like Salesforce and HubSpot are really meant for companies that have multiple departments channeling information into. And even in that case, a lot of times those companies are running Salesforce and HubSpot with tools that are used for sales process automation. A CRM is not optimized to do sales in a way that it needs to actually be effective. So the way I would explain this is by asking you a few questions. All right, do you mow your own lawn? Do you do your own electric work? Do you do your own plumbing? Do you do your own HVAC? And why don't you do those things, right? Maybe you do one here or there, but you got a lot of anxiety when you do it, right? And the reason why you don't do each and every one of those things is because there's somebody else that's better for the job. That's what a sales process automation system does over a CRM. Can you send emails from a CRM? Yeah. You can probably hook up another system to do calling, to do SMS, and you can hook up all these different tools, right? So there's a lot of things that you could probably do inside of a CRM, but every single time that you add one of those little complexities into the process, and then you remove the fact that it's gonna drive the bus on your process, and it's a tool meant for salespeople, not your entire organization, there's gonna be a bunch of crap in there that really doesn't matter, that just slows down your reps, and it ultimately costs you a lot of money. A lot of money in wasted admin time, right, with your sales reps just completely wasting their time with different tools. A lot of money in lost growth opportunity. That time that they're spending fiddling around with a bunch of software inside of a CRM that's not optimized to help them do their job is money that you're losing every single day. And every single day that you lose money is a day that you lose to accomplish the goals of building a really great business. You can't be having your sales team using tools that aren't meant for the job. All right, so rubber has met the road here. I've talked about a lot. I've talked about what sales process automation is, what it is not, and the 3 things that you need to think about in terms of actually implementing sales process automation into your business. And as I said before, there's a lot more that goes into this, right? There's so much that goes into this, but I've only got so much time in this video. So if what I've been saying makes a little bit of sense on not relying on gimmicks and spammy sales tactics and implementing principles and leveraging this process of sales process automation into your business to implement SOPs, predictability, repeatability without losing that B2B sales relationship connection, then Uptycs helps with all of this stuff. And a lot of people think that Uptycs is just a software. And we have a software, of course, that's a sales process automation software, right? But I have frameworks for nurturing, my reverse sales funnel, okay? I have frameworks for cold outreach, called my cold to gold. And of course, I have the system that helps implement all of this stuff, being Uptycs our software. So I haven't gone into detail on all of this stuff, but I have proven frameworks to help you implement all of this into your business. And if it's something that you want to learn a little bit more about, then click the button down below. You can book a call with me or someone on my team. And what we'll do on that call is we'll dissect your entire process that you're doing now, look at the goals that you want to achieve, and let's see if I can help you implement these philosophies. And I'll go into more detail after understanding if this is a good fit for you. I'll go into more detail on what our nurturing framework and strategy is. And I'll go into more detail on what our cold to gold framework and strategy is. And I'll go into more detail on the sales process automation side, but not before I understand your business in your use case to see if this is something that really truly makes sense for you right now, because it's really meant for people who are ready to make a change in their business, stop relying on those gimmicks and growth hacks, spammy sales tactics, and really start focusing and thinking about sales and building relationships with people, but leveraging technology and automation. So if you're ready to make a change, whether that be implementing something like this or changing your strategy from the growth hack, gimmick, spammy strategy, then click the link below, as I said, book a call with me. I'll be happy to walk you through each and every one of these steps, dissect your business, and see if this thing would really make sense for you. All right, so again, my name is Patrick Spielman. I'm the founder and CEO at Uptycs. I appreciate your time and focus here today. Hope you got a little bit of value out of this, and we'll see you on the call. Thanks.